The rugged Highlands of Scotland surely comprise one of the most mystical places on earth. Craggy hills and heather-clad moors embrace crumbling ruins and ritual stonescapes, all standing sentinel over deep, brooding lochs and rivers. The scent of damp earth and wildflowers mingles with the tang of distant pine, birdsong weaving a delicate melody overhead. In odd moments, the call of a distant raven or wolf pierces the idyll, their haunting notes underscoring the natural symphony. As day transitions to night, the sky transforms into a celestial canvas, reminding all that this is a realm where nature reigns supreme. All of it, from stars to stalking creatures, seem to be called to the shores of one ethereal site in particular, the deep and ancient lake called Loch Ness. Loch Ness lies at the eastern end of Scotland's Great Glen, running 23 miles from the city of Inverness to Fort Augustus and following the glacial Glen fault line. The water of this storied body itself holds secrets, its depths shrouded in legend and lore. At times it appears almost as a mirror, reflecting the changing moods of the sky above, from the soft blush of dawn to the fiery hues of sunset. Yet when the mist descends, it becomes a realm of mystery, where imagination paints shapes and shadows in the shifting fog, and roamers on its shores ponder its awesome depths of over 700 feet. In the hills and hamlets around Loch Ness, time seems to flow differently, blending past and present into a seamless continuum. It's a place where the line between reality and myth blurs too, inviting exploration and stirring the soul with the eternal questions. But one mystery towers over them all. The Loch Ness Monster first gained worldwide attention in 1933, leading to varying levels of public interest and belief over time. Locals call the creature Nessie, feigning a familiarity with a being whose very existence is largely anecdotal, consisting of breathless accounts, disputed photographs, and sonar readings. The scientific community typically attributes sightings of the monster to hoaxes, wishful thinking, and the misidentification of ordinary objects and animals, while the pseudoscientific subculture of cryptozoology has faithfully stood by the truth of the legend. The first modern sighting of a creature in Loch Ness took place one autumn around 1871 when a Mr. D. Mackenzie reported seeing an object resembling a log or an upturned boat moving through the water. His account, however, was not published until 1934, after the popularization of the monster had begun. In 1888, a man named Alexander MacDonald reportedly saw a large, stubby-legged animal in the loch, describing it as resembling a salamander. But the sighting that truly ignited the public fascination occurred on the 15th of April, 1933, when Aldi McKay saw an enormous creature in Loch Ness. Her report led to the widespread use of the term Loch Ness Monster in connection with the beast. That summer, George Spicer and his wife saw what they called a most extraordinary form of animal cross the road in front of their car, describing it as having a large body and a long, wavy neck. This sighting significantly contributed to the modern Loch Ness Monster legend. That fall, the world began to take notice of sleepy Loch Ness and its environs when a local news agency published the Spicer sighting. This led to numerous additional letters to the editor and reports that flooded in of creatures described as sea monsters, monster fishes, sea serpents, or even dragons. In short order, the name Loch Ness Monster was the one that stuck, and it would become shortly embedded in the public imagination all over the world. As reports increased, they were also getting more startling. In 1933, a man named Hugh Gray captured the first known photographic evidence of the monster. The following winter, on the 5th of January 1934, Arthur Grant claimed to have nearly hit the creature with his motorcycle. His description lined up with that of a plesiosaur-like animal, though skeptics suggested he might have seen an otter or a seal. That same year, though, the famed surgeon's photograph was taken by a London doctor named Robert Kenneth Wilson, the most recognized picture of Nessie. Initially considered proof of the monster's existence, it was later revealed to be a hoax that involved a toy submarine. In 1938, a G.E. Taylor filmed an unidentified object in the loch for 3 full minutes. His footage, analyzed by Maurice Burton, was pronounced by experts as inconclusive. Undaunted, many others tried to record or otherwise identify the monster in Loch Ness. In December of 1954, sonar readings taken by a fishing boat indicated that a large object had been following the vessel, adding more, however, to the mystery than its resolution. In the spring of 2007, Gordon Holmes videotaped what he called a jet black thing moving in the water. Though initially hailed as some of the best footage of the beast, experts suggested it could be, again, an otter, a seal, or even a bird. Then, in September of 2021, drone footage captured a 20-foot creature near the loch, reigniting interest in the monster for a new millennium. What's not so well known as Scotland's infamous monster hunt is the claimed spiritual dimension of Loch Ness, indeed, of the whole area surrounding the loch, and including the monster itself. In fact, stories both divine and demonic have swirled around reports of the beast and its Highlands home. Long, long before the first modern sightings of a water monster here, a Catholic saint turned in the first known report of an encounter with the unmistakable but inexplicable local anomaly. Saint Columba was an Irish monk, missionary, and scholar who played a pivotal role in spreading Christianity in Scotland during the 6th century. Born on December 7, 521, in County Donegal, Columba was of royal descent, hailing from one of the most influential clans in Ireland. He received an excellent education under the guidance of priests and monks, becoming well-versed in Christian theology, Latin, and the scriptures. As a young man, Columba was ordained first as a deacon and later as a priest, and his passion for Christianity, as well as his natural charisma, influenced many from the time he was very young. Columba founded several monasteries in Ireland, the most notable being those at Derry and Durrow. These monasteries became centers of learning and piety, and they influenced heavily the development of both culture and religion. However, Columba's life in Ireland was not without controversy. A dispute over a manuscript copy of the Psalter led to no less than a battle in 561, a conflict in which many lives were lost. Rightly blaming himself, Columba chose self-imposed exile for his penance, and he resolved to spread Christianity beyond his homeland of Ireland and to never return again. And so in 563, Columba, along with 12 of his monk companions, traveled to the island of Iona off the west coast of Scotland. Iona became the base for his missionary work, and the founding of an abbey there marked the beginning of Columba's efforts to convert the local pagans, natives known as the Picts. Columba's approach to his conversions was marked by a combination of diplomacy, the establishment of monasteries along his missionary path, and the performance of miracles. His fluency in the Pictish language and his understanding of their culture enabled him to get very close to the local populations and to communicate with them. Over time, he gained the respect of even the Pictish king, which greatly facilitated the spread of Christianity in Scotland. Columba's life was replete with miraculous events, as recorded by his hagiographer, Adamnan, in the Life of Saint Columba. One of his most renowned aspects was his ability to heal. He's said to have cured countless of their various ailments and diseases, bringing relief to many. His prayers and blessings were believed to alleviate not only physical, but spiritual afflictions, drawing numerous followers and believers and inspiring huge swaths of conversions to the Catholic faith. Columba was also known for his prophetic visions. He accurately predicted events such as the outcomes of battles and the personal fates of individuals. Most astounding of all, Columba seemed to possess some kind of control over the natural elements, a power akin to that of the angels. Stories recount how he calmed storms, provided food during times of scarcity, and even influenced the behavior of animals. One of the most famous of these episodes was Columba's encounter with a monster at Loch Ness, particularly the River Ness, which flows from the loch. This event, the earliest recorded sighting of the legendary creature, has contributed significantly to the mythos surrounding Loch Ness. The encounter occurred in 565 AD, and according to Adamnan's account, Columba and his companions were traveling through the Scottish Highlands when they came across a group of pigs bearing a man by the river. The pigs explained that the man had been attacked by a water beast while swimming. Despite their efforts to save him, he had succumbed. Columba, moved by the tragedy, decided to confront the beast, but in a not frankly very saintly action, he instructed one of the other monks to swim across the river to lure the creature out of the depths. As the monk swam, the beast, sure enough, surfaced and charged toward him, roaring ferociously. The onlookers were terrified, fearing for the man's life, but Columba remained calm and resolute. He raised his hand, made the sign of the cross, and invoked the name of God. His voice bellowed over the waters as he commanded the creature to go no further nor touch the man. Go back at once. Miraculously, the beast halted its attack, retreated into the depths of the river, and disappeared. The monk reached the shore unharmed, and the assembled Picts were astonished. Legend says many of them converted to Christianity on the spot, marveling at the feats of St. Columba and his banishment of the monster. In the many centuries that passed between St. Columba's experience and the modern sightings of the Loch Ness monster, other lakes, rivers, and streams of the Scottish Highlands veritably flowed with their own tales of ghosts, monsters, and other supernatural beings. In a land still rife with pagan belief, they do even now. Spirits known as kelpies were said to infest rivers and streams, and other beings reportedly dwelt in lochs and seas. These are purportedly not only stunningly beautiful creatures, but equally vicious and deadly, disguising themselves as anything they wish. These entities especially like to take the form of horses and to run their riders right into deep waters, drowning them and then devouring their corpses. Maids of the sea live in the oceans. They are best known for granting wishes, teaching men to sail, and then turning on them and leading them into storms and the path of death. Loch Ness itself is believed to have supernatural origins. Local pagans told of a being called Dark Baira, the goddess of winter and darkness. According to myth, she created the great bodies of water in the highlands, including Loch Ness, which is named after one of her servants, a wayward spirit named Nessa. Each year, Nessa is said to be heard singing from the depths of the loch's black water, where she fled her mistress so many years ago. Not only the waters of the Scottish Highlands are haunted by supernatural forces. Ghosts and other supernatural beings seem to be in every field and furrow. The Battle of Culloden, which occurred in the spring of 1746 near Inverness, saw the bloody loss of thousands of Jacobite soldiers in under an hour. Even today, the Culloden battlefield is known as one of the most haunted places in Scotland. Each year, on the April 16th anniversary of the battle, the warriors can still be seen and heard in ghostly form, still fighting the battle, their war cries and dying moans echoing across the moors. On the outskirts of Inverness, not far from the battlefield, is Tomnohoric Hill, which is believed to be infested with the dark spirits known for centuries as fairies, the gentry, and by other local names. One disturbing legend of this hill claims that two fiddlers looking for work in desperation took a job playing at a fairy banquet. The man who hired them promised to pay them in gold. They agreed, and when they finished, happily accepted their pay and started on the road home. But when they returned, they found that a century had passed. Their family and friends were all dead, and their cottages in crumbled ruins. The men sought help from their parish priest, but they disintegrated to ashes upon entering the church. Eldora Castle, nestled on the southern shores of Loch Ness, is a place of both historic grandeur and dark legend. The castle, which dates back to the 17th century, has a long history intertwined with mystery and the supernatural. The fortress has witnessed centuries of history, much of it shrouded in tragedy. Originally a large mansion, the castle underwent significant transformations and expansions. Its stone walls have seen countless lives pass through, each leaving an indelible mark of suffering. During the turbulent times of the Jacobite risings in the 18th century, the castle, like many Highland estates, found itself caught in the crossfire of political intrigue and strife. The castle's remote location made it a potential hideout for Jacobite supporters, and it's said that many clandestine meetings and secret alliances were formed within its walls. Among the most famous of the castle's haunting tales is the legend of the Grey Lady, the resident female phantom. According to legend, she is the spirit of a young woman who met a tragic end within the castle. There are various versions of her story, but they all share the common themes of love, betrayal, and heartbreak. One popular version of the tale suggests that the Grey Lady was a young woman who fell deeply in love with a man who did not return her affections. Despondent, she is said to have taken her own life within the castle, or to have flung herself from its turrets. Another version claims that the Grey Lady was the victim of a tragic accident or foul play, leading to her untimely death here. Regardless of the exact circumstances, her restless spirit is believed to linger in the castle even now, forever mourning her lost love and unfulfilled life. Visitors and staff at Eldora Castle have reported run-ins with her in the form of apparitions, phantom smells of flowers, and whispers down the halls. Despite these stirring tales of the supernatural throughout the Loch Ness region, without a doubt the most notorious is the place known as Boleskine, which includes a lochside burial ground in the shadow of an old hunting lodge above. The cemetery is ancient, its silent stones watching above the water's edge. Through the year, visitors come in search of it from around the world, most because of its dark history. Part of that darkness is found in the headstone of Donald Fraser, which bears 3 holes that harken back to a funeral that ended in a shooting. Boleskine Graveyard lies directly on the military route between Fort Augustus and Inverness, two strongholds of the Hanoverian forces. In 1745, during a funeral near Fraser's grave, a military transport passed by on the road. According to the story, one of the funeral attendees stole a loaf of bread from the transport's cart and threw it to the dogs. This act of defiance provoked a dangerous response. The soldiers fired into the funeral party. A haunting reminder of the day still remains in the stone that still bears evidence of the chaos. But Boleskine Graveyard offers far more disturbing history than this. Generations before Culloden, a wizard reportedly raised the dead from their shallow plots here. The actions caused so much terror that a local minister named Thomas Houston took it upon himself to bring the wizard's dark work to an end. He matched wits with the wizard, invoking the name of God to end his powers and return the undead to their graves. Reverend Houston is buried here at Boleskine Graveyard. The whereabouts of the wizard remain a mystery. These chilling cemetery tales surely contribute to Boleskine's reputation as a haunted place. However, the biggest draw here for ghost hunters and supernatural adventurers is the low-lying mansion above the graveyard. The structure was built on the site of an ancient church, which, according to legend, burned to the ground with the congregation still inside. All of their lives were lost. The mansion featured a line of owners before almost meeting a fiery end in 2015. The owners included the man who, some believe, conjured up the Loch Ness Monster. Boleskine House was constructed in the 1760s by Colonel Archibald Fraser, who used it as a hunting lodge. His choice of the site was an act of spite against Simon Fraser, who had, to the colonel's irritation, supported the Hanoverian side of the Jacobite Rising of 1745. The house includes 4 bedrooms, a kitchen, a servant's bedroom above the kitchen, a lounge, a drawing room, and a library. For some reason, there's also a tunnel under the house that leads to the graveyard across the road. Locals tell many tales about the dark history of Boleskine, dating to before its current structure was built, including that of a beheading on the property. You can still hear, they say, the victim's head rolling around the house. But the real darkness of Boleskine began at the very turn of the 19th century, when in 1899 the house became home to a man some call the OTHER Loch Ness Monster, the English occultist Aleister Crowley. As someone involved since high school in the study of secret societies, religious history, and parapsychology, I knew Crowley's name well when I first began looking into his life at Loch Ness a few years ago. I knew he was into sex magic, into drugs, and that he fancied himself some kind of great occult master. I used to talk about Crowley on the ghost tours I hosted here in Chicago, because in Lincoln Park there's a little Victorian tavern, which some claim was a meeting place for a chapter of some 1920s Crowleyan club. But I didn't know anything specific about his life story. It was during the winter of 2020 that I learned about a lot of the things that Crowley did. In particular, I learned about the one big thing he did at Boleskine House in Loch Ness, and about the other big thing he did right here in the United States. Later, I would come to learn about a pair of very influential American occultists who counted themselves among his followers, and above all, I would learn about the connection to all of it to the UFO phenomenon. But that is a story for another day. Crowley was born in 1875 in Leamington, England. The son of a wealthy brewer, he inherited a vast fortune while still in his early 20s. Having turned against his Christian upbringing, and with his every need met, at least for a while, he spent most of his time traveling the world and becoming deeply involved in the probing of the occult. In 1898, after leaving Cambridge University, Crowley was initiated into the Order of the Golden Dawn, which counted among its members Bram Stoker and W.B. Yeats. But Crowley soon found himself on the outs with many of his esoteric associates who believed sobriety and self-control were crucial to the practice of arcane rituals. Crowley, on the other hand, loved drinking and drugs and, moreover, had a voracious sexual appetite, seeking out encounters with women, men, people of every age, and eventually even animals. He would later write poetry about engaging in sex acts with his lover's infant daughter. His followers and his critics still hotly debate whether these musings were descriptors of real events or products of his foul imagination. Crowley wrote that his first mystical experience had taken place during a homosexual encounter. The act, he claimed, had summoned some kind of deity. This belief led him to what would become an obsessive pursuit of spiritual growth through sex and the practice of sex magic to facilitate that growth. In just a few short years, Crowley had burned bridge after bridge because he did not care for rules, boundaries, or any institution or person that told him what to do. In particular, Crowley tussled with Yeats. Rumors flew that Crowley was using black magic on the poet, and some said that Yeats responded with his own. Crowley seemed forever embroiled in some kind of conflict. Even among freaks of the forbidden, he just didn't fit in. And so in 1899, Crowley left it all behind and bought a house on the shores of Scotland's Loch Ness, the old hunting lodge known as Boleskine Manor at the time. He chose it for a very specific purpose, planning to hunker down in the remote fortress and attempt one of the most ambitious and dangerous rituals known in the occult world, the ancient Jewish rite called the Abramelin. It's said that Crowley loved the fact that Boleskine seemed cursed, and he reveled in its dark influence on, it seemed, all who came close to it. He listened to old tales from locals who took to calling him Lord Boleskine. One day he returned from a hunting outing to find a Catholic priest waiting for him in his library. He reported to Crowley that his new caretaker, a teetotaler, had gotten blind drunk and tried to kill his family. Not long after, a butcher filling an order for Crowley accidentally cut off his own hand. Later, other dark acts would come to the house, including the suicide of a later owner. Not long after moving in, Crowley began to prepare for the Abramelin. The ritual would take 6 months and result, he hoped, in the summoning of his holy guardian angel. In occultism, that's not a God-given protector, but one's so-called higher self. The ritual includes invoking the 12 kings and dukes of hell, including Satan himself, in order to bind them. Some experts in Crowley's life believe he may have originally meant well to bring these demons under his control and force them to do good. But that is not what happened. Before beginning the major rite, Crowley sharpened his skills as an occultist, engaging in all manner of ritual practice to prepare for the Abramelin, the big one. He reportedly succeeded in summoning a number of angels, demons, and other supernatural beings through these other minor rites while warming up for the Abramelin. Some have posited that it was during the warm-ups for the ritual that Crowley also perhaps unwittingly conjured the legendary Loch Ness monster. Still, others claim that the monster had always been there. Crowley, they say, merely summoned it from the depths after hearing locals tell of the mythical monster of old. After months of rituals, months of practice, during which he claimed to see, according to plan, scores of demonic beings assembling at Boleskine, Crowley was called away from the house, by the Golden Dawn. A schism had broken out in the organization, and Crowley, for some reason, was needed at once. Without ending the ritual, he left Boleskine. Crowley had summoned demons, a lot of them, and left the door wide open. Some have wondered if the unfinished ritual at Boleskine was the reason that Crowley's life took such a deep dive into evil in the years that followed, or if it even impacted the wider world. The ritual would be connected, as mentioned, to the UFO phenomenon that broke over the world in 1947. But again, that's a story for another day. As for Boleskine, the curse on it remained long after Crowley left. Musician Jimmy Page, founder of the rock band Led Zeppelin, became obsessed with Crowley as a teenager, attracted to the Beast's "Do What Thou Wilt" creed. Page spent a good part of his substantial fortune acquiring Crowley collectibles, including his clothing, magical tools, books, and writings. But Page's eyes were always on Boleskine, and in the early 1970s, he got his chance and purchased the remains of the Loch Ness estate. At once, he set to refurbishing and decorating it with reproductions of the vile murals Crowley had painted on the walls of his diabolical monastery in Italy, a place notorious for the activities which caused Mussolini to throw Crowley out of the country. But Page thought it was all just great. Page would later flatly acknowledge the dark power of Boleskine. He said that visitors planning to make long stays quickly left, giving no explanation for their departures. He was also well aware of not only the dark events surrounding Crowley's housekeeper and butcher, but also that the owner before Page, Major Edward Grant, had shot himself in Crowley's former bedroom at Boleskine. He publicly said that guests and staff often heard the sound of a man's head rolling around the house, that reported man who'd been beheaded on the site before the hunting lodge was built. Though Page loved Boleskine House, he was not able to spend much time there because of his touring schedule, and he asked a friend of his, Malcolm Dent, to serve as his live-in caretaker in his absence. During that time, Dent said he was awakened one evening by the sound of what sounded like a wild animal grunting, growling, and snarling outside his bedroom, a presence that he said filled him with feelings of evil. As for the water monster of Loch Ness, some believe the demon of the lake was not originally summoned by Crowley, but has always been here, which would not only explain the sighting so long ago by St. Columba, but also a spiritual dimension to the beast. In 1973, Dr. Donald Ormond, a vicar, traveled to Loch Ness to attempt to exorcise the lake, to rid it of the thing that he called an apparition, an evil spirit of the loch, a demon. Not only did Ormond believe the monster was a diabolical entity, he also said this spirit of the loch was an evil influence on the locals, and that it had caused them to become addicted to alcohol and drugs and had ruined relationships, including marriages. He said the creature had also served as a draw for black magicians and pagans. The monster then had summoned Crowley to Loch Ness, and not the other way around. Oman believed the demonic being in the lake was thousands of millions of years old, and he referred to a lake in Sweden with its own demonic monster, and even claimed to have seen a similar beast himself in a fjord in the north of Norway. There, too, he said, he had observed an injurious effect on the people who saw the monster or those who went looking for it. He noted that people would become obsessed with these beings and then become addicted to the search for them, abandoning their families, their children, their jobs. They would see their relationships fail, including long-time marriages, and see their health disintegrate. In April of 2019, the Boleskine estate, including the ruins of the house, was divided into 4 lots and put up for sale. In the 2 years that followed, Kira and Keith Reddy purchased the lots and set up a foundation to restore Boleskine to its original splendor. A week after buying the property, another fire broke out in Boleskine, credited again to arson. To help raise the extra money needed for the restoration, the foundation announced the sale of bags of rubble from Boleskine House, a sale that had many takers. Meanwhile, a protest orchestrated by the Fresh Start Foundation, describing itself as a Scottish not-for-profit group working with and for the survivors of child sexual abuse and satanic ritual abuse in Scotland, publicly warned that the plans to restore Boleskine House and open it to the public would turn the place into, quote, a pilgrimage site for Satanists, end quote, a claim that the Boleskine House Foundation called, quote, false and grotesquely unfounded, end quote. However, as I thought about it, I distinctly remembered that when news of the foundation's purchase of the property came out in 2020, that news included the owner's plans to resuscitate the, shall we say, Crowley-style activities at the house, including the practice of historic rituals. Today, the restoration has neared its end, and the opening of Boleskine House to the public has begun. Though there's no public talk of magical rituals or other shady dealings right now, I did recently discover that the central owner and head of the Boleskine House Foundation is himself an occultist. He is also the author of a rather gushing book on Thelema, Crowley's notorious religion, which has gained a disturbing number of followers in recent years. It seems that one of the master's very own students has become the new Lord Boleskine, and perhaps the new handler of the elusive, watery beast of Loch Ness. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Ghostlorist. It means everything to me that you are here and that you support my work. If you could do me a huge favor and like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, and comment something below the video. Let me know what stories you'd like to have me research in the future. Let me know what you think about the show. And I really, really do appreciate that. It really helps me to get shown to more people. And I really want to know what you think as well. So thanks so much for being here. I'm Ursula Bielski, and I will see you next time.